The year is 1899, the peak of the Gilded Age. In New York, the elite are dancing. In Boston, the banks are overflowing with gold, but the money paying for this champagne didn't come from a railroad, and it didn't come from oil. It came from a massacre in the jungle. While the Vanderbilts were building libraries, a corporation in Boston was building a private army. They were called United Fruit. They owned the railroads. They owned the mail. They owned the politicians. To the American public, they were the friendly Chiquita Banana Company. To the people of Central America, they had a different name. El Pulpo, the octopus. They didn't just buy fruit, they bought nations. And when a democratically elected president tried to stop them, they didn't sue him. They called the CIA. This is the story of Sam Zemurray, the banana warlord. The man who proved that the Gilded Age didn't end at the border. He showed the world that for the right price, you can buy a government, overthrow a president, and sell the wreckage for 5 cents a pound. To understand the banana warlord, you first have to understand the kingdom he conquered. In the late 1800s, while Carnegie was building steel mills, a man named Minor Keith was building a railroad through hell. Costa Rica. Minor Keith was a Brooklyn-born businessman with a god complex. He didn't care about the jungle. He didn't care about the people. He cared about the track. It cost 4,000 human lives to lay the first 100 miles, including his own 3 brothers. But Keith realized the passengers weren't the profit. The jungle was. He planted bananas along the tracks to feed his workers. He quickly realized the fruit was worth more than the ticket. In 1899, he merged with the Boston Fruit Company to form a monster, United Fruit. They built a navy called the Great White Fleet. They weren't just a shipping company, they were a sovereign power. They negotiated deals with dictators that gave them tax-free land for 99 years. They built company towns. If you lived in Honduras in 1910, you didn't live in a country. You lived in a corporation. You worked for United Fruit wages. You shopped at the United Fruit store. You were born in a United Fruit hospital and you were buried in a United Fruit cemetery. It was corporate feudalism, and for the Boston elite, it was printing money. But the Boston elites got lazy. They were old money. They sat in their leather chairs on Wall Street and forgot how to hustle. Enter Sam Zemurray. They called him Sam the Banana Man. But he wasn't a Brahmin. He was a wolf. Sam was a poor Russian immigrant. He started by selling the ripe bananas, the ones the big companies threw away, out of a boxcar in New Orleans. He hustled, he fought, and he became rich. So rich that in 1911, he decided to buy his own country. When the government of Honduras tried to tax him, Sam didn't hire a lawyer. He hired a mercenary army. He bought a surplus Navy warship, smuggled in machine guns, and overthrew the government of Honduras in a single weekend. He installed a puppet president who immediately abolished the tax. Sam Zemurray proved a dangerous point. Corporations are stronger than nations. Years later, during the Great Depression, United Fruit's stock tanked. The Boston Board of Directors was panicking. They were losing millions. So Sam Zemurray marched into the boardroom in Boston. The old money elites laughed at his accent. They called him a fruit peddler. Sam didn't blink. He slammed a bag of shareholder proxies on the table. He leaned in, looked the CEO in the eye, and delivered one of the most famous lines in business history. "You gentlemen have been effing up this business long enough. I'm going to straighten it out." The immigrant had conquered the aristocracy. The warlord was now the king. By 1950, United Fruit was the deep state of Central America. But in Guatemala, a problem emerged. A new president, Jacobo Arbenz, was elected, and he had a radical idea. Maybe the people of Guatemala should own the land in Guatemala. Arbenz passed Decree 900. He seized the unused land United Fruit was hoarding and gave it back to the farmers. He offered to pay the company exactly what they claimed the land was worth on their tax returns, which was almost nothing because they had been lying to the taxman for decades. Sam Zemmour was furious, but he couldn't send mercenaries anymore. The world was watching. So he hired a public relations genius, Edward Bernays. Bernays didn't sell bananas, he sold fear. They launched a massive propaganda campaign. They branded President Arbenz as a Soviet puppet. They claimed Guatemala was a communist beachhead threatening the Panama Canal. It was a lie, but it worked. And who did United Fruit call for help? The US government, but not just any government officials. They called the Dulles brothers. John Foster Dulles was the Secretary of State. Allen Dulles was the director of the CIA. But before that, they were partners at Sullivan and Cromwell, the law firm that represented United Fruit. The old money elite and the CIA were the same people. In 1954, the CIA launched Operation PB Success. They bombed the capital city. They jammed the radio stations. They paid off the army generals. President Arbenz was forced to resign. He was stripped naked at the airport and exiled. A military dictator took over. He immediately returned the land to United Fruit. The bananas were safe, but Guatemala plunged into a civil war that lasted 40 years and killed 200,000 people. All for the price of fruit. Sam Zemmour won. But in the end, the guilt caught up with him. The banana warlord became a recluse. He donated his fortune to hospitals and universities, trying to buy back his soul. But you cannot unring a bell, and you cannot unstart a war. United Fruit changed its name. Today, you know them as Chiquita Brands International. In 2007, they pled guilty to paying $1.7 million to a terrorist organization in Colombia for protection. The name changed. The business model didn't. The Gilded Age didn't just build libraries and railroads. It built a world where a corporation can be more powerful than a country, where profit is the only language and democracy is just an obstacle to be removed. The next time you peel a banana, remember who paid for it. I'm Julian. Welcome to the archive.